Okay, so we've got the Da Vinci Code, Angels and Demons, the Crying Game, and that's it, I think. They're 3 movies, okay? Now, I did have a big long list, but as usual, there's no way that I can do 30 movies in one video, even though I only wanted to make a single little point and say piece it all together, and you have a picture of this fantasy world that I would say is a fantasy, but it's a reality for some people. If you live in a fantasy, then it is real. If you live in the real world, then it is a fantasy. And either way, there are elements in all movies that have connection to reality. That's why they're made. And vice versa, if you follow me, which I'm sure you don't, because I don't follow myself most of the time, to be quite honest. It is, once you go into a fantasy way of looking at things, you do have to leave reality behind, and you do, then it becomes very confusing, and you really just have to let go of any ideas that you actually already have. And that is, that's easy to do when you're watching a movie, but not so easy to do if you're thinking about the movie later on in a different way. But at any rate, the Da Vinci Code, Angels and Demons, those 2 were made, the Da Vinci Code was made first, and then Angels and Demons. I spoke about it in the previous video, but I feel that I'm not getting anything across. The Da Vinci Code, I would say there are many elements in it. Many, many, many. Now, at the time, it was kind of famous at the time for the idea, I'm told, and I didn't fully get this when I watched the movie. This movie was very, very, very badly made, from my perspective, because as I've said before, I think all movies should be made simply and to the point so that anyone can get what they are telling, or at least the basic story. Otherwise, you're only catering to a limited market. You're catering to people who already have an interest in something strange, or an interest in something else, or already have a certain amount of knowledge. That's the downside of my videos, because as I've said before, I never started to actually make them with that purpose. It was the complete reverse. But of course, as I've said before, we live in a reverse world, so that's only common sense then, if there's any left in the world, because in a reverse world we don't really deal with common sense. Common sense is out the window in a reverse world, as you can imagine, because if everything is in reverse, then common sense does not exist. And common sense just simply means, like back in the old days, when if you saw something, you saw it for what it was. You didn't then have to check it out, or look into it, or think about it. What was before your eyes was before your eyes, and you instantly said, my eyes don't deceive me, this is common sense, this is what it is. A duck is a duck. A cat is a cat. A dog is a dog. A dog is not an elephant, you know. But, you know, and that's why I say that I personally, this is only my own personal thing, but in a reverse world, then we are actually living in a kind of fantasy only if you have common sense. If you don't have common sense, then the reverse world is your world, and it fits you, you see. I'm not sure if I'm making any common sense, but at any rate, it's all very airy-fairy, and we sound very interesting, don't we, when we say it? But in reality, it's, interesting if you can look at it that way. I don't find it interesting, but then again, I can become negative. Now, the Da Vinci Code, yes, in that, the famous thing at the time, which made it controversial, even though, as I said, I think it was a poor movie because I didn't even get that, what they were all talking about at the time. So that showed that the movie was very poorly made or made for a very limited market. And I said that about my own things too, that, if you are making something for the majority of people, shall we say, then you shouldn't be mucking around or presuming that they have any prior knowledge. You shouldn't presume that that they've studied, if a movie was, say, made on ancient Egypt, you shouldn't presume that people have any knowledge of ancient Egypt. You shouldn't presume they probably even know the pyramids, which is kind of that most people do. You know what I'm saying? That sort of thing. You should make it as though you are, that's only my opinion anyway, and so forget about that. But, the Da Vinci Code, the whole thing about it at the time, which I didn't mention in the previous video, was that in the Last Supper, because this is really a very religious movie in a strange way. It's about art. I thought it was about art, you see, when I watched it years ago. I thought it was about the paintings, some sort of mystical hidden meanings in the paintings, which is what it is about, really. But I didn't think it had kind of religious connotations, and I didn't get it. But the idea was that in the Last Supper, there was a marriage between, the god figurehead and the Mary or whoever it was. You must think I'm ridiculous not stating these things out, but I do not like to go into religion, as you can see. I'm almost like terrified to go near religion. I don't like to touch religion. I don't believe in religion. I don't believe in religions. But religions exist. Other people believe in them. They are real. It's more a question of what is behind the religions. Are the gods that people worship through the religions real? Are they worshipping the correct God, shall we say? Is it beneficial for them to be worshipping a religion? But for some people, it might just be, what is the real truth behind all this? Yes, so in that painting, the religious one, the Last Supper, the very Last Supper of the representation of God in this particular religion. Whatever that religion is, I don't know. I know that it has been part of my culture, whatever that is too, I don't know, and my life in a very limited way because I haven't been overly exposed to these things. And in my adult life, I have not sought them out and have not believed them to be a reality. But they are a reality because, like I've said before, if the vast majority of people, worship a god, then it is foolish to say that is not part of reality. because indirectly it will affect even someone that does not touch that sort of thing. It will be unavoidable in some respects. But either way, I have done my fantasy thing on the heaven and the Lucifer and the God creator. That is a fantasy. That is a religious thing in a way, because it's a story, but some people take it to be true. Now, there could be other stories too. I chose that one because I found it the most fascinating, and I had not really thought about that type of element in the religion. I had always thought, well, look, to be quite honest, I don't know what other people think, but I would have to say that all my life I would have tended thought, hey, if there is a creator God, if there really was or is a creator God, that creator God is therefore would have created humans, shall we say. So therefore that would be like the children, like in the video. So therefore it would have to be all beneficial. But I thought this idea of another being, like a Lucifer, for instance, that has evidently, as the story goes, rebelled, and therefore is not part of the God and his or her domain anymore, and has and therefore is negative. I would think that if you have a creator God, I always thought that whatever God was, it would be a positive force. But I always dismissed the idea that there was a negative force. I think that is a line from a movie which others have quoted, and it makes sense in a way. It is from a movie called The Unusual Suspects, where there is a line in that, and I think I've repeated it before, where the villain or the protagonist or whatever it is in the movie, can't remember now exactly, says, the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world that he does not exist. Now that's a very interesting thing, because that was certainly my view of the world. Like I said, if I had chose to believe or think that there was a God, I would have assumed there was just one and that it was all positive. I never ever actually believed that there was a Lucifer, a devil, or all that type of thing that actually is in the religion anyway, which is strange. But most people, I think, maybe are like me, where they dismiss that element anyway. Because if you have a positive force, you must have a negative force, in a way. That kind of makes more sense. Actually, it doesn't, to be honest. It really doesn't. But that could be the case. And if you do believe in that particular story or that particular religion or that particular idea, then there is a positive and a negative force. And so therefore, yes, if there is a positive God, then yes, it would be a very clever trick indeed if the negative God was able to convince those that believe in the positive God, like myself, as I said, even though I did not believe in any of those things, but I would have presumed that there would only be positive. It would be a great trick to convince those that do believe in a positive God, that there is no negative God, because then you would not. How can you push up against negativity if you don't know it exists? In other words, you will just assume everything is positive, and you will not know that there is a negative. It's like an unseen force then, isn't it? Interesting, anyway. Interesting idea, interesting fantasy, interesting fairy tale, interesting opinion, interesting from the movie. I wasn't going to mention that movie. It's not even on my list. The Da Vinci Code, yes. I think I'm going to leave the Da Vinci Code, actually. I don't think I want to touch the element of the Last Supper. But the idea was there was a marriage between the central figure in the picture and the one sitting next to him. Of course, this is meant to be in the picture one of the apostles, I believe, so that would be a male figure. But in the movie, the idea is that it really represents Mary, a female figure, dare I say. This is how the movie goes. This is what the controversy and fascination was with the movie at the time when it was released. Even though, like I say, I think most people found the movie confusing and disappointing, as I did, because nothing was made very clear while you're actually watching it, despite the fact that that's all it was about, which is rather strange. So I'm going to leave that movie. Angels and Demons, the follow-up movie. Have not seen it. The title, Angels and Demons, I said an interesting title. Now, in this in this reverse world that we live in, just take the title. We're going into fantasy again, going into fairy world again, going into imagination again. Angels and demons. Supposing we have angels and demons. Supposing they exist, angels and demons. If they were here, in a reverse world, that would probably mean that we have angels doing wrong things and demons doing good things. That's interesting. Of course, this would only be at a superficial level, but also it would be, is it not easy, to convince, and for even, dare I say, myself, through most of my life, I have done many wrong things, mostly wrong things. I have not done that many positive things, I do not think. So therefore, I'm no angel, as another old movie used to, was the title of, and that was definitely the case in that movie, I'm pretty sure of that. But what I'm trying to say is that because we live in a reverse world and it is so convoluted, many people might think they do good things but are really doing bad things. What I'm trying to say is that yes, we have a confusing situations. Yes, angels could do wrong things, and yes, demons could do good things. Because none of us know what we're really doing, but I'm just being silly, I suppose, but that's an interesting thought. At any rate, this video is going to a lower level than what most of them are because I'm not getting it right. And the ideas even are not coming properly. Now, I'm going to go on to The Crying Game. Now, that is a very fascinating movie, to say the least. I saw it years ago, haven't seen it since. Long time ago I saw it. Did not understand about 3/4 of it. And it was a complicated movie talking about many more things than what I'm going to discuss, because I still don't understand all the... I don't understand that there again. I don't understand the basic premise of the movie at a realistic level, even the actual characters and what their situation was. But it's still very watchable, strangely enough, because of the characters' emotional that level, at the emotional acting. I say acting because it's all acting, but it's still acting as though they are humans. So it's at the human level. It's still a very interesting level movie. But I'm only going to focus on the basic love story behind it, even though there was many, many, many other aspects which I don't understand even now. But you didn't need to understand it because you still got the general gist of the movie. But the thing is, the love story, of course, between the man, the gentleman in the movie that falls for the lady in the movie, who turns out that the lady is really a man, but is masquerading as a female, a lady. Now, and she does not inform. She meets him in a bar, I think, if memory serves me correct. Doesn't matter if I get all these things wrong, just follow the idea. It's about an idea, really. And movies, and this movie is trying to show an idea, very obviously, I would say. At least this is what I took from it. As I've said before, he falls in love with the lady who is really a man, masquerading as a lady for whatever reasons, I do not know, but this is the story. He falls in love with her thinking she is a lady, and for whatever reason, even though he only likes real ladies, shall we say, in his world, he accepts this. And of course the gist of the movie, I would say, is that love conquers all. The physicality of the human being does not matter where love is concerned. You can love, you don't have to love the opposite of yourself. You don't have to do things in a natural way. You can theoretically love anyone or anything if it is love. Personally, my own impression of the movie and my own feeling about the movie when I watched it years and years ago was that he was foolish. Because, like I say, she did not inform him of what she was. And she continued to play that role. And he, because, you see, the idea of that movie, you'll have to watch the movie, was that he paid the price of many years of his life, because I believe he took the fall for her or for someone else in the movie through love, because he loved her. So he not only changed his mindset, you know, with this love conquering all idea, love transcending the body and whatever. Look, I don't think that has anything to do with the movie. Personally, I just saw it as where he was deceived, and he bought the lie, and he bought, you know, he fell in love with someone who did not really love him in return, my own feeling was. Now, that is not exactly how the movie plays out, but that's how I saw it. Now, I think this is true in the sense that in the middle of the movie we have that famous story. It's it's a parable, an old parable, an old fairy tale, old parable. But it's one of those parables and fairy tales that makes sense and that is meant to uh, give you some truth or some idea that makes sense. And that, of course, is the story of the frog and the scorpion, which I had not known about before this movie, by the way, and have only looked into recently. But I remember it in the movie, and it's very important because it is part of this love story thing. Because essentially, yes, in my view, he was the frog and the lady was the scorpion. But he did not see that as the frog and the scorpion goes. Now, perhaps I'm overdoing it because it doesn't matter. It's still an interesting thing. I'm going to talk about this frog and scorpion because it just occurred to me, and this may be relevant to the movie, maybe not, but it doesn't matter. Frog and scorpion. The frog is a good little being. He's a little frog and he can swim. The scorpion cannot swim, but he is a scorpion. And a scorpion likes to sting. It is in his nature to sting. But anyway, the thing is that he asks the frog to take him to the other side of the river. There's a river flowing there on one side, there's another bank on the other. He says, will you, if I get on your back, would you take me across? The frog, knowing it's a scorpion, thinks, no, I better not, because he might sting me. He's not exactly the world's kindest character, shall we say. And so he declines, but the scorpion begs him and says, oh, please help me, I need to get across. I won't sting you, I won't hurt you. I'll be very grateful. Of course I will be grateful if you help me and take me to the other side. And the frog, being basically good-natured, as the man in this movie was basically very good-natured. It wasn't that the lady was so terribly bad-natured, but, she had probably had a different life. The man essentially had a good nature underneath everything. He may not have always done everything right, and he may have been tricked and may have been involved in even some wrong things. I don't know, because that movie was far too complicated for me. It wasn't just a simple love story. But essentially he was a frog, you could say, underneath it all. Maybe the lady was essentially a scorpion underneath, I don't know. But either way, she did lead to his downfall, in my opinion, even though he seemed to be quite happy doing time for her, because he thought he was doing something good, because love, you see. An interesting point, but anyway, I may have the movie slightly wrong, but this is my take on it, okay? And I did see it years ago. But anyway, the frog, finally says, yes, I will take you to the other side of the riverbank. The poor scorpion wants to get across. Of course he won't kill me, because he won't sting me, because if he stings me, he'd probably go down in the water himself and drown. So that would be stupid. That would be insane. That would not have common sense, which is what, I mentioned earlier. So the scorpion jumps on the frog's back, and halfway across, or this is one version, by the way, of this tale, which I will get to, even though it's complicated. The halfway across, the scorpion stings the frog, and they both start to go under. And the frog, of course, says to the scorpion, why? Now we're both going to die. Why are you doing this? Why? And, of course, the scorpion answers, because I'm a scorpion. In other words, he can't help it. It's in my nature. I'm a scorpion. Can't help it. Even though it defeats me, I can't get to the other side. We're both going down. This is one version of the story, and I have been told, when I looked it up on the thing, that some people disagree with this whole parable and say it's nonsensical and don't like it for obvious reasons, because, they say that in the correct version, the frog takes the scorpion right to the riverbank, and so doesn't act. He's not stupid. He has not gone down, because it does. The other thing would be cutting off your nose to spite your face, wouldn't it? Halfway down, but that's, some people say that is the correct thing too. It doesn't matter, because it's all the same point in a funny kind of way. Even he took him to the other side, right? The scorpion gets off the frog. He's safe at the other side, and then he stings the frog. So he has accomplished his purpose, but still couldn't help his nature, wasn't grateful to the dear frog for taking him across to the other side, because it's in his nature. He's a trickster. He doesn't care about the frog. He doesn't like the frog, for no reason, even though the frogs helped him. But then there is the other idea. What if he wants to come back? He has now killed the frog, for the return journey, because he might want the return journey, probably will. So in my view, he's still done something a little foolish, but he has survived. But basically the same thing. It says, like, why, the frog says. And he says, I can't help it. I'm a scorpion. It's in my nature. Can't change the nature. Now, I think this, in the movie, it relates a bit to that love story, I think. But some people might disagree with that, because if you watch the movie, it may or may not ring true. Now, in this reality, we have some people that are like the scorpion. Psychopathic people are like a scorpion. They do not care for the frog or for other humans. They do not feel for them. They do not, they like to, destroy them in a way. And this is a similar thing. So the frog and the scorpion can be related to humans, which is the idea of the parable and the story, I would think. But more so than what people realise, because a lot of people would say, hey, they're just, what is the scorpion? But these are personalities that are very prevalent in our world now. And their numbers are much bigger than what they used to be. Because I always used to think, hey, what's a psychopath? That's 1 in a billion person, that they make a big fuss out of it when maybe a crime is committed or something, but these people are not prevalent at all. Your chances of meeting them and your chances of being hurt by them are minuscule. But this is not really true, because our world has changed and people have become more materialistic, less feeling and less... Well, a bit like I always say at the start of the videos, we're spiritual beings in a physical body, in a physical world. And at some point, this physical world takes over us to a large extent, so mostly out of necessity in a way, but at the same time, it does become like to where we have an insatiable appetite for the material. And this is what happens with psychopathic types of people. They're not usually very easily satisfied, even when they, are successful and get what they want. They always want more, and it's a very physical thing, I think. They're very much into the physical, and this is true of most people now, because it's a technical world, and technical is physical, you see. Technical is very physical. It's not spiritual. It's the reverse, because as I said, we live in a reverse world. So now we live in a technical, very physical world. And most people live that way, and they actually don't believe in the spiritual. But they may well have religions and things like this other movie, the Da Vinci Code with the Last Supper and all that. They may have religions, but they're still living in a physical world and act that way. I am going off the track. I'm not putting this right. And I feel bad to be saying this because this is normal. How can you not be physical when you're in a physical world? How can you be spiritual when you're in a physical, technical world? It's not realistic almost. Spiritual, it's like the frog and the scorpion. The frog was a spiritual little being because he even wanted to help a character, a scorpion. He knew it was a scorpion. He didn't particularly like the scorpion. He knew scorpions stung. But he was such a spiritual little frog that he still felt sorry for the stinging scorpion, because he didn't acknowledge 100% that he's a spiritual little frog in a scorpion world. Did that make any sense? I don't think it did. Dear. Better leave that one. Not getting this across, not making sense. But at any rate, there may be other elements to the frog and the scorpion. I think I wrote something down months and months ago about it. I can see it still here. I just found it. It was underneath things, so I must have had some idea also about this video, which I have now forgot, which is strange. I can only think that there are many versions of it because some people say the scorpion was really very clever. I saw that on a comment about this particular parable because, some people would say if the scorpion stung the frog before he got to the other side, then his bad nature, being a scorpion, negative nature, defeated even him. Whereas most say, no, he did get to the other side. So he was, and I'm no doubt that the people that say this are probably the psychopathic types of people, because they would say, hey, no, the scorpion was very wise, because he still got what he wanted and still was able to satisfy his naughty nature. That's interesting. But I say that, that it was still foolish because maybe he needed to return journey. And so he had closed that off. He had some success. Sure, he would be trot off being very happy after killing the frog and getting to the other side. And also the satisfaction of being able to convince the frog to take him across. Because that is great satisfaction for a negative scorpion, shall we say. To trick. That is great satisfaction. Because the frog knew. It wasn't like the frog was silly. He was not silly. He just let his spiritual, good little nature, and even common sense to some extent, because there was a little bit of that's why I think the original thing makes more sense, because I would say that the original parable of where the frog takes him across, because he does have some common sense, and he's like, oh, the scorpion won't kill me, even if he doesn't really like me. He will be because even if he's really naughty and won't be grateful that I'm taking him across, he won't kill me before we get across because he will die himself. There's no common sense to that. Even if he's got a bad nature, even if he is a scorpion, which he is, but even if he's not a good, because the frog might have thought, well, maybe he's not a real bad scorpion. But at any rate, look at the movie and analyse this little parable for yourself and think about it and come up with your own stuff, I would say. Now, there is the crying game. Yes, I think I'm going to leave the crying game. I'm not doing very well today, as you can see. I'm going to go... I did talk about a movie called Satan's Triangle that I saw a month or two ago. I made a little video on it, I think. I'm going to go back to that. I don't know why. I should be going on to all the others, but I've lost the list, to tell you the truth. Now, in that movie, The Satan's Triangle, these people are on the boat and these mysterious deaths occur. And essentially, this man comes onto the boat and is able to convince the girl, because she thinks it's some sort of supernatural type of thing, because she can't believe how weird it is the way they all died, and she's wondering why, you know. But he points out that there is a realistic, logical explanation for all these deaths. And she believes it eventually. And they form a bit of a liaison. Now, in the final scenes of the movie, you see, the idea was Satan's Triangle, that this other being that is like a Satan type of devil-like is inside of this person. Now, what eventually happens is that at the final scenes, of course, the girl and the fella, they also are killed. But when they are killed, a other force, a negative force, takes over them. Takes over their body. Almost like they have died, and then another being, a negative being, can inhabit their body and masquerade as them, literally, in the movie. Now, in the final scenes of this movie, it was interesting only in the sense that it would appear, if I remember the movie, that these negative, let's say Satan, because it's called Satan's Triangle, the negative beings are only able to, for what I can see, inhabit the bodies of those people that that essentially are very, yes, we'll go back to what I said before, essentially non-spiritual and very material, because they were not, I did not think they were bad people, and they weren't, but they were, she was able to be convinced that yes, there is a logical, physical explanation for these mysterious deaths, when of course they were not, as the movie goes, they were supernatural. They were caused by Satan's Triangle. They were in Satan's Triangle. This boat was in that Satan's Triangle. I think there is actually a place on this earth that they say, is it the Bermuda Triangle? It's the same thing, okay, where boats mysteriously disappear. I don't know if this is true or not. This is all fantasy and a fairy tale anyway, okay? But we're going with the fantasy and the fairy tale for the sake of this idea, or just for the sake of the fairy or the fantasy, whatever you like. It's a tale. Now, so in the end, most of these humans can be inhabited quite easily by the Satan's Triangle, by the other beings that are there, I guess. I don't know. I don't fully understand this. Angels and Demons, maybe. That's the other movie. You see, I'm all over the place. I'm just, don't know. You know, just throwing it all out there. It's all one big mess. And does it make any sense? Is there some reality to any of this? Is there any truth to it? You know, I do not understand fairy tales, but I believe in them. Yeah, I don't understand fairy tales, but I believe in them. That's silly, isn't it? Why would you believe in something you don't understand? That makes you even more ridiculous, even more out of touch, even more into the fantasy and more unbelievable at a logical, yeah, even common sense level, which is what I've been throwing up. But hey, there you go. It's but anyway, I did notice that in the final scenes that there was one gentleman, I think, that died and went down with the aeroplane, as I remember. But he seemed to be somehow religious, and, you know, is that spiritual? I don't know, but it did seem to prevent him from. He lost his life, but he didn't have the infiltration or the takeover, because it was a takeover. It was like a takeover because the girl and the fella died, but then they come back to life, but they were different. You could see that it was not them, something else had taken over them, but it looked like them, so they would be able to masquerade around as themselves or whatever. I'm not sure what the purpose of all that would be. It's an interesting movie, not a particularly good movie in a way, but interesting, the idea, I thought. And I don't know why I went back to that, but I just thought I'd make that point that not everyone was taken over. Maybe you have to want to be, maybe you have to be very materialistic, want to be taken over, or even to be neutral. Maybe that allows that, because it struck me that the only fella that, although he died, and some people would say, well, you know, what benefit to him? But that's a different thing. He was very sure that this Satan's triangle was trying to take him over. He was aware of this. The others didn't believe in it, you see. So if you don't believe in something, that's right. You have no protection, I would think, if it is true, if it's real. And so they were taken over very easily. Almost, yeah, because if you don't think there's any reason to protect yourself, if you've bought into the physical reality, as the girl did in the end, where she's like, oh yes, there's a logical explanation for all these deaths, it's all physical, nothing supernatural here, we're not in Satan's triangle, because originally she thought, hey, what's going on? Yes, there is something, even though she was not of a, probably not of a particular, it probably didn't have any belief in any of that stuff, but even her eyes were like, this is too outrageous to be logical. She couldn't see the logic. She couldn't see the physical logic of it. But when it was pointed out to her that yes, because in the reality we live in, there is always a physical explanation for anything that doesn't appear to make sense, because we live in a physical matrix. So there will always be that. And if you don't think that you're a spiritual being in a physical matrix, then you're going to believe that there is only the physical, and that you operate totally in the physical, and it will appear so, because there is a physical explanation for, like in the movie, there was 100% physical explanation. If you took all the contributing factors to these bizarre events into account, the deaths, there was a physical explanation if you look for it. But if you just operate at a spiritual level and say, oh, that is too bizarre, it's a question of what you want to believe, you see. That's what I'm saying, and the movie's shown that. But in the movie it did show that it was Satan's triangle. So it didn't actually, but anyway. I've gone off track and made no sense there. Okay, I think I shall leave it here, because I have got other movies, but I think I've still got some time, but I don't think I'm doing very well, so I'm almost appalled at my own interpretations here, and I did have the Life for Ruth movie that I did a thing on. I'm going to go back to that. I said if I think of something else, I might go back to it because it's such a difficult movie, though. A simple 1962, I think, movie about the man, the husband, he's married, they have a little girl, she is injured in the water, she loses a lot of blood. The doctor says a blood transfusion will save her life. The gentleman, the father, refuses the blood transfusions on the grounds of his religion because he is a devout, I think you call it a fundamentalist religion type person, where they believe totally in the literal word of the book that their religion is based on, okay? And yes, this book used to be in every hotel room in my country and most countries of the world where this religion was accepted as the general belief system. And they burned those books in the other movie, Fahrenheit 251. Because they think that books make people out of touch with reality and unhappy to think that there is another realm apart from the physical world that we live in, the technical matrix earth that we live in. Matrix is a technical world. Matrix is what we live in. Matrix is where you use technology to enhance your existence, shall we say. But it also means that you will be influenced by that, and you will be directed by it in a way, because it is that is your books. The technology then becomes your books. And that's why they burnt the books in 251 Fahrenheit. The fire department created fires and burnt anyone who had books because the books were giving incorrect information. The books were fantasy, the books were not true, and people believing or reading untruths and fantasies does not make them happy, whereas to accept the technical, physical reality makes people content, and that comes through technology, computers, TV, which was like in the movie. Okay, am I making any sense? No. Oh dear. Okay, where was I? Back to Life for Ruth. You have to be a mastermind to follow me, wouldn't you? Because all over the place. I'm not even following me, I don't think, but it's the best I can do, and you've got to, and this is what I say, you've got to already have some prior knowledge to listen to my videos. You probably have to have seen the movies, etc., etc. Otherwise, it just sounds like a load of rubbish. And that is all opinion too. Yeah. In Life for Ruth, right, I'm going to go back to it. This is terrible because I know I've went from these movies and now going back to a movie that I discussed months ago and didn't make a very good point, but it's an interesting movie. Like I say, the girl loses the blood. The doctor says must have a blood transfusion. The father refuses on the grounds of his religion, because his religion says you cannot take blood into your body. If you take blood into your body, his belief was that you will die. And of course you'd say, well, no, that's the opposite to what the doctor says, because the doctor says if I don't give her a blood transfusion, she will die. But you see, this is the element of the movie. Here we are talking about physical death versus spiritual death. The father believed, because it was written in his book, that is the basis of his religion, and he takes the book literally, the literal word of his God, and that says that if you take the blood into the body, you will die spiritually. Because even he knew that it would extend the physical life. He actually knew that. He did not dispute the doctor on that. But the doctor, of course, was non-spiritual and didn't care for the religion, as most would not. And we live in the physical world, so he was against the fella naturally for that reason. And I was when I watched the movie. The whole point of the movie was to say that we should not let religion dictate negative behaviour, that the child had a right to be protected from a father that's beliefs would mean that she would physically die. Now this is interesting because the law was changed to where the doctors can override parents or a father who refuses blood for his child. Now, I have been told, to my surprise, because I just assumed that law would still be in existence, but I'm now told, only a few days ago, to my surprise, that there are places where this law is, where you can refuse blood or anything on the grounds of a religious thing, which is interesting to say the least, and I'm not sure which is the truth even. But either way, I'm going to go back to the movie and forget that point. But it's interesting, and it surprised me if that was the case. But like I say, it's a reversed world, and it changes all the time. And it, what is a belief one year, and what is a common accepted practice, or what is beneficial to the matrix or society. The matrix is society, okay? Because society operates as a whole. A matrix is where things operate as a whole instead of just individuals doing their own thing, A matrix is not about that. It is like you don't cross the road without pressing the lights, It's like everything is for the safety and the good of the whole, supposedly. That is a matrix. That is the world we live in. That is society. That's just putting it in a nutshell, because you have to use words. I don't know how to use words to describe what a situation is, what a world is. But we don't live in a world where everyone just is a free spirit walking around doing their own thing. Of course, we say that we must respect that, and we must allow for free ideas and all this sort of thing. But a matrix is a contradiction too. You see, that's what I'm just saying. So you have to figure out for yourself what you think of all that. I think, and I'm not going to go there. No. But anyway, in the movie Life for Ruth, he turns down the blood in that movie because at that particular point in time, parents had control over their children 100%, because they are, after all, their children that they physically bring into the world, and until a child gets to a certain age. Of course, in the movie they did say, hey, but the child might not believe in your beliefs if she lives, and that's quite true. He made the decision for her. And he also believed in the idea, because this was stated in the movie, that the sin... there was another line in the movie where it said... where the doctor says to the father, why would your daughter be denied eternal life just because you allow her to have blood? That is your decision, not hers. So surely your God would not punish her and deny her eternal life on the base. And he says, well, it is written in my book also that the sins of the father will be passed down onto the children. So, in other words, yes, his decision would deny her the spiritual eternal life, shall we say. That was his belief, that was the movie. Okay. Now, what I was hoping that I could find out from someone, but I have not been able to, because I don't discuss these things enough with people. But, and I can't, because most people are not interested in discussing an old movie about blood. But the idea of why would taking blood from another human into another human, why would that, when it clearly at a physical level, and I'm going with the fairy tale of the movie here, by the way, so you can take it or leave it or turn off, that's okay. But it's interesting either way, it's just speculation, okay? Why would, in a logical way, there again, we're going to be logical now for a change, not spiritual, not airy-fairy, why would taking blood into your body, when it clearly is shown to prolong physical life, and if you lose too much blood and don't get the blood replaced, you die. Now, why would that be a bad thing based on this religion? Okay, why did he not question why this would be? I mean, it's another thing to say, yes, it's written by my God in his book. Okay, that's fair enough. But, if you're, some people are more investigative than others. I'm not one of those, but I am interested in it now in this movie for whatever reason. So I'm saying, why would that blood, why would it be bad? Why would it cause... I'm not making sense here, because yes, one is a physical and one's a spiritual. Okay, so if you take the blood in, it defeats your spiritual life. Your spiritual life, and if you believe that we're all spirits, like I've said, but it's still nothing to do with this movie, by the way, even that thing. I'm just using the movies. It may or may not be relevant, I don't know. But if you are, it denies you your spiritual life, why would taking blood in to just sustain the physical life here, why would that defeat you and stop you from having your spiritual life? And he said, yes, the sins of the father, and it's written, but why? What would be the reason behind the God of that man saying to him that you shouldn't take someone else's blood into your body? If it clearly proves that it prolongs your physical life, what would be the bad thing about that? So I'm guessing that there must be more to the blood. Blood is life, obviously. Now, this just came to me before I made the video an hour ago, right? Now, maybe, this is fantasy, but maybe if I go onto Satan's triangle, back where others have inhabited the body of someone else, but they are in Satan's triangle, so they are inhabited by different beings. Satan's triangle has these demonic type forces being that are able to inhabit the body of the regular human beings once they have died. So the blood may save the physical life, but like for instance, okay, I'm going really weird here, I'm going mad, okay, so maybe, and this is pure fantasy, I'm telling you, and it just came to me before the thing because I'm combining all these movies and letting it go. Look, maybe if, and I'm sure it's wrong, but maybe if I lost blood and needed blood Now, what if one of the beings from Satan's triangle, who looks like a human but is inhabited by the beings from Satan's triangle, taking that movie into account, offers me some blood? That is their blood. I'm going weird here. Surely that is not the blood of, if I'm a spiritual being, right? Surely that blood is of those that are from Satan's triangle. They are not the same. They're negative. So they have negative blood. So if I have positive blood, supposedly, if I'm a spiritual being, a normal human being. We assume this, okay? Could be wrong. Then I take the negative blood in. I take the negative blood in from what I think is another spiritual being. And it is a different type of spiritual being, because clearly these people, when they died, you could see that they were inhabited by, yes, the Satan's triangle, the different negative beings. They were demonic. You could see the look on the face. The movie shows you that. Take a look at the movie. This was clear in the movie. So if I took blood from one of those, I would be taking in a negative blood in relation to me being a spiritual being. So I would, and as the blood is life to a certain extent, therefore the spiritual life blood will be replaced by a negative anti-life blood. You see. Would that change me and make me more physical and make me more of the matrix, or of the physical world, or of like those beings who are different? Now, I don't know what those beings are, or whether that is a physical technical thing or not. I do not know. This is a fantasy thing and it just came to me. But if the blood is life, which it is, and you know that different blood types even do not mix, etc., etc. We know that. That's why years ago, when people used to exchange blood, many people did die because they got the wrong blood type, etc., etc. That's another story, and one that I do not understand and haven't looked into. But I think the blood is a very interesting thing. A very interesting thing. And there is much, much more to the blood. Much, much more. Now, you see what I'm saying, based on that movie, and that just came to me, that may have validated this gentleman, this father's reason for refusing the blood. But in the movie it did not explain this. It was just based on his belief in his God and what was written in the book that was based on the word of his God, evidently. He believed in the literal word of the Bible. That's what it says in the movie. The Bible was the book that he took his religion from. He took it literally. So that's just a fantasy just coming to me with the Satan's triangle thing. So whether it makes any sense, because there must be a reason why you would refuse blood and think that it was a negative thing, when in the physical realm it clearly is a positive thing to sustain the life, but not to sustain the spiritual life, based on this movie. And it's an interesting idea. I would be very interested what other people's ideas on that was, but because I'm at a loss. But I'm trying to make together a fantasy, So even if it's true or not, or even if I believe it or not, it doesn't matter. I just think it's interesting. But I'm sure there is a truth behind all these things, because I think that there is definite merit to the blood being of life. Maybe different bloods have different type of life, as I've said. So a bit like which is something that I was thinking of, and many people have discussed, and yes, I think it has been in some movies. The idea of replacing body parts. In other words, like people have heart transplants. So you're getting something from someone else. This is different to the blood, I would think, but I do not know. Is it? But either way, you are taking something from someone else. It is not yours. Now, does that change the person in some way? I don't know. This is just, it's like the blood thing, right? Who knows? I could not say. I have not seen examples of where this would be so. And that would also come from another idea, like, are you meant to prolong earthly life? Are you allotted a certain span? Is it all written? If you try to go against what is written, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Most people try to go against what is written every day, in a way, don't we? We all do, because we want to prolong this existence. Well, I did most of the time, not quite so much these days, but you get old, you do get a little bit worn out and sick of things, and so you can get to that point where you say you don't have quite the drive to prolong it. Whether this is a negative thing or a positive thing too is another point. Is this, but more importantly, like at the physical level, how far are you meant to go to prolong the earthly life? And what means will you use to do it? Is it good to take the blood in to prolong the human life? Is it good to replace an organ to prolong the human life? Certainly my own thing, as you know, because I'm very much technology versus nature, I personally would say that in the beginning, once again we're going to the beginning, so I've lost most people already, because most people are like, why does she keep going back to the beginning? What has the beginning got to do with now? Okay, even if some people were prepared to say, hey, maybe she's right about the beginning. Maybe we did have a potential along a more different line originally. But our bodies have now changed. We are not the same. So why should we not go with the physical and the technical? Because that is our only hope now, because we have diverged too far away from our little Garden of Eden or whatever, or our idea of staying 100% natural and living that way. It's a fairy tale now. She's in the fairyland if she's bringing that up, because we have taken a different choice, and it clearly is to our benefit. It clearly is what we are now. Our bodies have probably changed anyway. Is it not easier to technically do something, to chemically do something, to genetically do something? I'm trying to use the words because I'm not a scientist and I'm as ignorant as anything. So if I'm trying to impress you, I am, and I'm sorry that if you really know more, you'll probably think she is talking through a hat, and I am. I am clutching at straws here, completely. But, this is what I believe or what I think, Either way, that's my fantasy world. That's what I would cling on to, regardless of what the physical and the technological offers. I would say that is, to me, even if there's only a straw to clutch onto for the natural, I would say that is, for me, that is what is wise. But for 95% of people, it would be the opposite, because it makes sense. Why would you clutch at a straw when the other is a guarantee? You see what I'm saying here? I'm saying the sad truth is that the reality and the future for prolonging life and maintaining this now wreck of a physical human body is only through technology and those things that I mentioned, even though I don't understand them, genetic science, in other words. But certainly not going and sitting out in a desert and picking herbs off trees, or using only organic, natural substances to maintain the body or to improve it. That's the way it is. I'm just saying that I would prefer to, if I could, obviously I'm not doing this, I've thrown in the towel, okay? But this is advice, I guess. I would, if I could, that sounds good. I would, if I could, clutch at that straw and, yes, go and sit in the desert and use only natural things to try to keep my body going and possibly even improve it. I would bet personally on that as being the only way, the best way, and the only hope for a spiritual human being. Everything else, regardless of how effective it is, regardless of what the future is, to me is a negative. I believe this. But I can see why many wouldn't, and in this reality we live in now, it's like if you are living in an artificial environment, how do you hope to defeat or hold back the forces of a negative? Because natural and technical is negative if you believe in natural is positive, you know what I'm saying, if you don't believe in the technical, or if you prefer to take a natural product, something that is organic, shall we say, as opposed to a chemical substance, that's technical versus natural, in my view. You might disagree with that, and that's fine, but that's just putting it simply. This is how I'm very fundamental too, I suppose, in a way, on these few issues, which I don't believe in being too fundamental, but maybe that is good or bad. It just depends on what the truth is, doesn't it, really? Or what you believe in, or what is effective for you. Because if something is the truth, then that is fundamental. But if you believe in something that is not true, and you're a fundamentalist, shall we say, and as most people are, we all are in a way, because whatever you believe is what you are fundamentalist about. You see what I'm saying? So if you are fundamentalist and your belief is wrong, only there again, if it's like I say, it depends on what your belief is, but if you believe in the physical only, then it is reasonable for you to believe in technology only. Or at least to believe that in many directions that is better. You might be someone who, like most of us are now and almost forced to be, because there are many people who might think like myself and say, hey, yes, we should be a bit more natural, we should eat a bit more natural, or we should take a bit more natural things. If that natural thing works better than the chemical, and it might be cheaper, or it might be this or that, why not? A lot of people do that, but they will still use technology too in other ways. In other words, they're not fundamentalists, they're not narrow like me, where they're saying, actually, I do use both. And I use more technical and more chemical stuff than what I use natural. I just don't think it's the right thing. I don't think it's a benefit. I think it's negative. But I will say that once you incorporate too much technical into you, you change. You are what you eat, as they say. So the body also is now not a fully natural body anyway. And my illusion and my fantasy and my dream of going back and saying we were this and we are meant to be this, and the body also is somehow sacred and somehow the temple of bringing the spiritual person to a higher level, to where they are able to transcend, just used a big word there again. I think that's a movie, Transcendence too, and believe you me, that is not what I'm talking about on that movie, which I did see not that long ago, a year or two ago. No. That is not the type of transcendence that I'm talking about, like in that movie, Transcendence, if you do want to see it. I did not like it at all. And I would say that even though I didn't fully understand it all, there again I will plead ignorance. Sometimes I criticise things that I don't fully understand, and that is true. But that's my privilege. I'm not making out here that I know everything. I don't know very much at all. But, I've got to hide to make the videos in some ways. But, I'm a simple person, and take it or leave it. I cannot change that. I would like to know more about those things, but I don't think they're necessary. I don't believe in them, full stop. Yes, I am negative in that way. I'm saying, hey, now maybe that is a bad thing, because it makes me feel bad. Whereas maybe if I could say, hey, look, this is about a spiritual situation, a spiritual beings in a physical, technical, matrix, earth world. Maybe I'm taking that technical, physical aspect too serious, seeing it as too negative, and thinking that I do think that it inhibits. Because if you are, the idea is to use it and to not let it take you over, I think, too much. But I think that at a physical level it is inhibiting. That's my main criticism of technology, is that because if you are meant to be, I know that it's not possible, but I think that maybe it still is. But even if it isn't, there still could be, we could have two worlds operating at once here. And that's a bit weird, I know. But like, if human beings are spiritual beings, their thought creates reality with emotions and feelings. If they become technical, they lose the emotions and the feelings, so they cannot create. They are all connected. That is the other issue, to other spiritual human beings, as I've said. So therefore, that should be a natural telephone line. But that natural telephone line has been replaced with technical telephone lines. Now, this is only if the human being had evolved to this level, but some still have some of these things. So this is why I cling on to the fairy world hope that, and I think that if you have two lines operating at once, if you have a technological line operating, going through the frequencies of this world, because everything is frequency and vibration, I'm told. Frequency, vibration and energy and other things that I know nothing about. Nothing. You know, they talk about electricity. Is that some sort of frequency? That's some sort of energy, some sort of vibration? Everything is, I guess. I don't understand all these things. See, I'm getting angry with myself and angry with, because I'm basic. And it's like clinging on to something that is basic and illusionary in a way, but at the same time, I think it's real. I think it's worth chasing that dream rather than this other real world. But I'm saying that if you have two things operating at once, I would like to see how we could have how these connections would be working, assuming it's true that we are all connected, because there again, most people would say, no, we're connected via the internet. We're not connected psychically or in any other way to other humans. I don't think that. I think we are. But I think that connection is not strong because, one, we don't believe it. One, we wouldn't know even if we were. And two, I would think that we have technological frequencies going through the vibrating and pulsating through the to one another now, as well as natural. So does this inhibit the natural thing? Like, I would be interested to know how, if this could be got back if we were in a less technological world. Now, I don't know this, because you might say, well, look, we haven't had the internet for very long. But then again, there's also, see, what we don't understand, this is it. It's like we're in a world that we don't understand how it works. We're supposed to understand more of how it really works, but we are limited because of the world we live in, as I've said. So we don't, what you don't understand, you as I don't, but I know that there is more there. There is more to understand. I feel that and I've said this before anyway, even if my fantasy is totally wrong, even if we are just physical beings in a technical world, I personally say, hey, we are physical, natural beings in and should be in a physical, natural world. I think that we would be more benefit and we would live longer and we would be more content in that world anyway. This is my own bottom line belief either way, So forget even if we're spiritual beings. I've said this before, I think. So either way, as you can see, I do not think there is that other world is, I don't think that other world makes for, contentment. And after all, what are we here for? Are we here just to be wasting our time trying to figure out information and be intellectual, as I've said before? What for? What for? To advance ourselves mentally in some way? I don't believe this. I believe a cat is a cat, a dog is a dog, a human is a human, an elephant's an elephant. All the different species on this earth, which most of them have even become extinct. Now, I believe they are what they are, and they are not meant to change. They're not meant to evolve into something else. They were created as they are. They are what they are. They are the best that they can be. Okay, so I've contradicted myself again. I'm a fool. Because, yes, you're saying, well, she's saying that you're a human being, you're limited, you have a limited lifespan, you have a limited capacity, you have physical, you are meant to become physically sick like you do, whereas originally she's saying the opposite, that we were meant to have more abilities, that we're not meant to get sick, because, yeah, that's because I'm saying that the cat and the dog and the other species, and I could be wrong about this too, by the way, they're at what they're meant to be. Their abilities that each one of them have is a great ability. You know, a bird can fly. That is a great ability. A human being cannot fly. A human being has not evolved to the same high level that a bird has. This is what I'm saying. It sounds ridiculous, I know, and it is in a way, but I'm saying that the bird is okay. We are not. We are birds that can't fly. We are, as I said before in the other thing, a fish out of water. We're a fish that can't swim properly. We're a fish. I thought it was a bad analogy or whatever, but we're a fish that is in a bucket that can't swim anywhere. We're a fish that is on the ground and someone is just splashing water on us. That's what we are. We're alive. We're surviving. We're breathing, but we're not living. We're not swimming. We're not swimming in the vast oceans. We're not flying. We're not jumping everywhere like all the other animals do that have their ability. We are operating at limited capacity. We are meant to be able to do much more than most of the animals around us. Instead, most of the animals can do more than us if you look at it at a physical level. Forget about all the other stuff. Of course, we're talking about intellect, but that is awareness. That is knowing all these things. This is knowing how to create, which we are meant to do. Technology is the opposite. That world works. And yes, you can replace, you can go that way. I got angry again. Sorry. But it can never take the human back to being the bird or the fish. I haven't explained this well, but you see what I'm saying. The idea. Just saying it's a nice idea, but is it reality? The technology is the reality. This is an idea. This is fantasy. This is illusion. This is dream world. I do not think so. I believe in the dream world. I believe in the fantasies. I do not believe in the technology. No. The technology is alien to this world, in my opinion. In my fantasy world, it's an alien force. Alien means anti-human. Alien means different to a spiritual being. Even just a regular, natural human being. Even if you don't believe that you're spiritual, even if you don't believe anything that I say. As I say, I still would go with nature versus technology. Of course, this is the complicated world we live in, and this is why we get messed up. Certainly at a mental level, I know it messes me up, because you will see some people saying, yes, why can't we have both? Because you will see some people that like nature, that want to save nature, that don't like I've said, species becoming extinct. But they're not worried about their own species becoming extinct. No, because they don't see that. Because we are so limited now, and because we appear to do so many negative things, but that is because of the movies. The movies, if you think about it. That is because we don't live in a world where it is just humans and just animals and just nature. No, we don't. We think we do. I think I do, but we don't. I don't. I don't think so now. I think that we live in a world that is much more convoluted than that. That's the word, confused, but also like those movies I mentioned. The Da Vinci Code, Angels and Demons, The Crying Game, Frog and the Scorpion, Life for Ruth, Satan's Triangle. So we are not dealing with just these two choices in a funny kind of way. I'm not getting this right. Not getting it right. Not dealing with just two simple choices of nature versus even technology, I don't think. Because, and yet in a funny kind of way, maybe if, because I believe in keeping everything simple. I haven't made sense here. This is the problem. Well, I have in a way, but at the same time, because it is such a strange world, such a tricky world, I hope I'm not doing the wrong thing with my hands here. I do not want to, as I've said before, put out any symbols or anything, because that's like the Da Vinci Code. It was full of symbols. Everything around it was symbols, and that's why it was dull as a movie for that reason, because everything was like Symbols of the Lost Feminine or something, I think was the title of the book even he had in the thing. I don't know why I mentioned that. But what I'm trying to say is I'm not saying it. I think I better close off. I'm not putting this right. It's got too confusing even for me, because although I think it's simple, although I think you could bring it down to a very simple denominator, and that's what I try to do. I don't think all this information matters. I think even if, just be a simpleton like me and say, hey, it is nature versus technology. But at the same time, then maybe if we broke it down to that, if it was just all nature, would we be able to get back our ability to swim? Would we be able to get back into the water? Would we be able to fly? Would we be able to get back and know things without, even at this imaginary mental level? Because clearly in this world we are bombarded with this idea that we have to be educated and we have to be clever and we have to be intellectual and we have to be intelligent. We have to be intelligent. Intelligence in some ways is the enemy, as I've said, of spirituality in some ways. I don't know why I think that, but why do I think that Dermot got out of the matrix and he was retarded? He didn't know the simplest things. Because he was spiritual. He didn't even know he was spiritual. He didn't believe in a God. He didn't believe in any religion. He didn't have any faith. He didn't have belief systems. But he simply lived at a mental level in a correct kind of way, in the sense that even if someone like myself was critical of him or was negative in some way, he didn't see that. He didn't see negativity in people. He didn't think negative at all. He was no intellect. He had no intelligence, you could say, at this world level that we live in. Because if you're retarded, that means you're dumb almost. He was not dumb. But from our society matrix point of view, he would have been classed. He was classed as dumb. Because, he did not function and understand all the so-called intelligent things that you and I think we know. We think we're intelligent. We're not intelligent. He's out of the matrix. We're still stuck here. We'll be stuck here for a long time. And if it becomes technical, we'll become even more stuck because if you believe in the intellect and you don't believe in just being kind and good, like he kind of was, then you will go more towards that, which is more towards the physical and the matrix. The matrix is totally physical. The matrix is low vibration. I don't understand these things, but it just comes to me that the matrix is very dense physical. The matrix is very low vibration. The lower the vibration, the more physical, the more dense. This sounds ridiculous because I live in the physical, dense world and I like it. Well, I used to like it. But I have nothing against the physical. I like the physical. I only know the physical. I believe in the physical too because I'm physical, And, I'm comfortable with the physical, provided that my physical is not too deteriorated. The matrix doesn't make it too deteriorated because the artificial technical world does age the body, etc., etc. And so therefore then you get depressed because you can't get around as well and you can't, because even if you can move freely and take in the fresh air, as they say, you will feel better. But, the matrix is more of a technological world, so a lot of people are more happy looking at a countryside scene on their TV or on their computer than actually going into the country and looking at the real organic thing. There's nothing wrong with that, and I've done that all my life. In fact, the dangerous thing for the matrix is if you are, as I was, to where I can almost get a little bit, I can almost raise the vibration just a little bit by looking at a picture that way. That doesn't work for most people. That is the matrix. That actually is, how the matrix likes to operate, because nature has an invigorating effect, I think, on a real human being. It doesn't have much effect on someone who likes technology. If you like technology a real lot and you prefer watching a screen or can't tell the difference, you almost can't tell the difference. But what I'm saying is, are they raising the vibration? And I think that they probably aren't. Whereas if you could look at a screen even and look at, say, something natural and raise the vibration with that, I don't know what I'm talking about here, maybe then the matrix would still be at a slightly higher level, at a bit more of a balanced level, because I don't think it's balanced at all. But you see, someone left a thing saying sound. Yeah, on the thing. Sound, yes. This was given to me, not my idea at all. Although I am aware of it, to be honest, only because of living in a very congested city where the sound levels are quite high. I think I've mentioned this. In fact, I couldn't hardly make the video because of sound outside of the door. You probably couldn't hear it, but it was completely distracting. It was unbearable. In fact, I was closing off the video almost because of it. But, I didn't. But it basically probably made me sound like a fool because your mind will be taken off your thoughts by a vibration of noise. That's right. Sound is a vibration, a frequency. Everyone knows that. I don't understand it, but yeah, we know that. So yes, if you have loud sound, as in the city, as opposed to natural, less sound like out in the country, that is a different vibration, I would think, if you follow me. And I lost train of my thought just then too. I was going to say something. Oh, look, I think I'll have to fold up. I'm not making enough sense here. I'm so sorry. I shall keep trying anyway. And if anyone, I suppose I could finish up by saying these videos that I make them on a mobile phone. I cannot store them. This is a world that is changing all the time. All the time. For all I know, YouTube could be gone tomorrow. So if you want to keep anything, you'll have to do it for yourself, is what I'm saying. You know, like, I don't know why anyone would want to keep my videos, but hey, if you think it's amusing and funny and you want to... But all I'm saying is that this world changes all the time, and I do not have... And, you know, I might not be able to make... you know, it's quite possible I could not be able to make videos tomorrow. Even myself, I might not be able to physically make them, you know, even if the means is still here, you know. So that's just saying that because, you know, I don't, you know the future, and also, you know, I speculate though that things change, and that you know, I'm not young, and like I say, you know, here today, gone tomorrow, as the saying goes. So, and maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe, you know, I would actually, my own personal belief is that provided a human is still here, a life force is still here, if all the rest went, the only problem is that because we have become so physical and so dependent on the unspiritual kind of technology, and also we are not natural anymore, so we don't know how to live. We really don't know how, I mean, like myself, could I say that we should be living in a natural world, but if all technology disappeared tomorrow and I was left just with my idealised Garden of Eden natural world, could I now, at the level that I am at, actually survive in that, to regenerate myself and to become the being that I think that we were all meant to be? This is another, you know, sad truth. I don't know. Some probably could. You know, maybe some younger ones who are able, if you could live off nature and understand nature. See, there again, we don't even understand nature, do we? Like, even if it's around us now, we don't really understand even nature. We don't know, like, you know, like there are some tribes, for instance, I don't know them, and I'm talking off my hat again once again, but there are some, well, like the Aboriginals, right, that used to inhabit this country, this place that I live in. They lived here before we come and took over. We brought our technology and our weapons and stuff, and basically they don't exist now in their natural state. But they lived totally off the land. They were self-sufficient. They were spiritual beings, you could say, I suppose. I'm not sure how advanced they were at that level. You know, I'm not sure if they were, you know, but I'm pretty sure they were a lot more advanced than me, even though to those that came and took over who had advanced technology, they were primitive savages. You know, but I say they were more advanced than me. Okay. But, you know, they knew how to survive and benefit the land and benefit nature, and nature benefited them. You know, they were here before us, and they knew how to do that. So if they were still here, if all technology and every means that's around us disappeared, they would survive and I would die. Now, some people would say, hey, we'd rather be dead than not have our technology. We don't want to be foraging. But what I'm trying to say is that at a natural level, they were like even when they were out in quite arid parts of the country, because even though I'm in the worst part, which is the city, there are vast expanses in Australia of land for people, huge, empty space. But most of us are crammed into the small cities, you know. But if we went out there, we could not survive because it would be too hot. We would have no food. We would have no water. We wouldn't know where to get the water. I'm sure there is water. But the Aboriginals that were here before us, they could survive out in the desert parts even, because they knew that certain little bushes had things on them that they could eat. They knew what was poisonous and what wasn't. They knew where to get the water. They could probably smell it. Their senses would, I mean, I'm guessing this, a bit like a dog. You know how I said that animals have some things we don't have? I've said this before. They probably could, I don't know, I'm speculating here, but they certainly survived. And they had no need of technology. I think they were quite advanced probably myself. But to us, when we came, we didn't realise they were advanced. We would have seen them as primitive savages because of their appearance, the way they, because they didn't have weapons and guns and lived simply. But we wouldn't have realised that at a psychological, mental level, they were probably much more advanced than us, the invaders, shall we say, that we took over. And the same as myself now. I'd honestly say that they would have been much more spiritually, mentally, even at a mental level, and understanding of the world around them. They knew how to heal themselves in harsh natural conditions, But of course we live in a different world. We go to the chemist, so it's, some people would say, well, what are you talking about? Well, I'm just saying, I don't know what I'm saying. So, it's just thought, food for thought, okay, whatever. I'm going. But, it would be interesting to try it. But like I say, maybe none of this is possible. This is why most people, even those that like nature, don't think that we can have a totally natural world, because they're like, hey, how can we get that back? And they're not unrealistic in thinking that we have gone so far in the other direction that to do an about turn would be a gamble, in the sense that maybe we would perish by doing that. Whereas that they know they won't perish immediately by the technology. Not immediately. But, But there again, that's another story too, because if we go back to the spiritual aspect, even the life for roof idea of there's the earthly life and then there is a spiritual life, then, you'd have to think about that, wouldn't say, and it's hard, because if you're in the physical, I know that myself, like, I'm making these videos, but I'm very much in the physical. So to jump the mind and say I'm now going to believe in the spiritual after believing only in the physical for a lifetime, and still only seeing the physical, because some people can see the spiritual. I'm not one of those. So that is what you call blind faith, yes, but I base it on the physical to an extent anyway, which I can't explain that, but at the same time, it isn't just blind faith. There is reality in a physical way to it as well. It's a bit like saying I can't see what I know is there, or what I think is there, because you can't. Okay, so you can't 100% know everything unless you're really seeing it or have experienced it, been there. Yes, there is that, and that's the problem. But I personally think that if we were at a higher vibration and at a higher level, and I have not been there, but I think that I was going to go there, and now I'm back. So that's my own personal view on it. But I do think that at at a higher spiritual level, in other words, a higher vibrational level, and vibration is a reality. That's a physical thing. Vibration frequency is a physical thing. It's just that we can't see it, just like we can't see the vibration of the internet and all the stuff that goes on. I don't know how my TV gets to go on. I know it's sent by waves of things. I don't know. I don't understand these things, but this is what I'm saying, but they're still there because they make something work. That's common sense there again, but you don't have to understand it, but you do know that you are dealing with something as a reality that you actually don't understand there again. So why should I not go the other way and say, I'm going to deal with spiritual stuff, I'm going to deal that there is another reality, but I don't understand it, I haven't seen it. Just like I don't understand the technical world that I accept as real. And it is real, but it's all real, is what I'm saying. It's just different. I would think that it's just because we are at a low limited vibration level that we can't see these other levels. If you rise up in the vibration, you don't have to have intellect, you don't have to have knowledge, you just probably would become aware of it. It's quite simple. In other words, we were like the cats and the dogs and the animals and everything else that is on this planet that is natural and organic, or that was on this earth and was natural and organic. Because many have died, and I do not know what is real or what isn't anymore, because I wouldn't know, like you can have different breeds of dogs and cats, and some of them are not just naturally occurring, are they? In the sense that they are genetically bred or there's interactions deliberately created, you could say, because originally there might have just been one cat or dog for all I know. I don't know, I'm just saying this, just as there was probably just one human. But now we have all different varieties and types, of everything. That sounded good, didn't it? And yet I don't know what I'm talking about, so I think I better go. Okay, I'm going now. I'm reluctantly going because it's almost as though I feel sad that I haven't made as much sense as what I would have liked, or, hey, look, I may as well be just honest. I think a certain way about these things. It's simplistic. It's what I think is the best. And I would say, though, that you could have many spiritual beings, spiritual human beings, that are not against technology. Do I think this is sad? Not necessarily. They could be on a better path than me, in the sense only that if they are not trading their spirituality for the technology, and if they are aware that it must stay limited. In other words, to use technology as a tool to a higher spiritual level. Now, when I said this, you see, just in saying that, it just occurred to me that I could be giving bad advice, because this is not what I personally think is the best option, because it's a gamble. It's a gamble. Of course, you'd say, well, what she's talking about is a gamble, because she said, hey, that it might be impossible to get back to where we started from. That sounds like a song or something. I'm not sure where that comes from. Get back to where we started from. But, like if you do believe that a cat is a cat and a dog is a dog and a human is a human, and they are all meant to naturally evolve to their best level as they are, I say that those animals already are, but we are not. We are because we are the species of the matrix. we are needed for the matrix, you know, the others are unevolved species. The human being is the most advanced species. But the confusion and the trick or the deception or whatever you want to say, I don't know what you'd say about it, is that, like I said, the cat and the dog is evolved to its highest level. So they are a superior species over me. But that is only because I am unevolved. They were already evolved. I was not. So I'm at a lower level than them in a kind of practical way. I'm not putting this very well, but in other words, it'd be like a bird, I think, or the example of the fish, but like a bird that, as I've said before, I always use the bird because to me birds are superior. A bird can fly. You say, well, we can fly, we have planes. Rubbish. We cannot fly. We need this technological junk to fly around. I'm getting angry here, I shouldn't say that, because it took great intelligence and masterful thinking and engineering, great engineering ability, great ingenuity, that's the word I'm looking for, see how ignorant I am, to make an aeroplane. And we thought we were advancing. We thought we were advancing, and we were because we could get round, but it'd be like a bird being born that should be able to fly but never flies. Like a fish being born that cannot swim. But it's, like I say, just someone throwing a bit of water on it, keeping it alive, on the ground, never moving around, but still alive, still breathing. It's a pretty poor analogy. That's me. That's many others probably. But others might, as we've done them, we've said, well, we'll use technology to fly. We'll use technology to swim. To get round. I mean, we can swim, I know that, but, we use a boat to go long distances or whatever. I'm not putting this very well. I can only put it the best way I can with little examples, If you get the gist, you do. If you don't, if you're into my fairyland world and the fantasy and the hope that we can evolve correctly, naturally, and properly, and assuming that you think that that is possible and that is our destiny and that's what we're meant to be. But if you think that we are evolved to our highest and that we actually started out less and that we are now evolved in what we are and that technology is part of all that, my argument, or not argument, but my premise or whatever, I can't think of the words, on this idea that just come to me because it has occurred to me that there must be many spiritual people, more spiritual than me, that think that technology is a good thing, because I have seen people like this, not in person but on the computer. And it kind of confused me at first, because at first I'm like, oh, I don't like this. I like this person, but I don't fully understand why they say they are spiritual, but they believe that technology is an answer. But actually that's not totally true, because most of the people that I have listened to on this, they do think that technology is a tool for that, I think, but they still say, like myself, that we're on the totally wrong path. But then on the other hand, they say, well, maybe this is all meant to be. Maybe we're meant to battle it out here somehow and figure it out, or still stay spiritual whilst being in a technological, physical world that is the matrix. also while being in a physical body that is very physical and technologically viewed by us, in the sense that we see it as very physical, even though we don't understand most of the body, as I don't. I do think that it is limited. I do think that most of what we don't use in the body, because even science, as I've said, tells us this, that that most of the DNA is not activated, useless. Well, I don't believe that there is anything in the human body that was probably meant to be useless. It's just that we're not using it. It's closed all down. And so therefore then we think that that is our limit. But is it our limit? That's my belief, even though I can't prove it and I don't experience it myself. So it is chasing, well, not chasing a dream, but it is saying that that is the dream. But we've gone so far from that no, I don't understand it all, but I think that that is the case. And I must close off because, yes, I've lost track of it. And I'm supposed to be on movies, but I did a few. I will do others. I have good ideas about these movies, but putting that idea across in words. Yes, frequencies, yes. Oh, I forgot about the sound thing that was sent. Yes, the sound. Oh, yes, the sound is frequency, because sound, yes, affects the mind and the body, and that then changes. Like if you listen to a loud noise, it is annoying, so therefore you get angry, and so that is low frequency. Sound is like technology. It is not an unnatural sound. An unnatural sound, that's what I'm getting at. Okay, yeah, I'm on track now. In the city we have unnatural sounds, loud unnatural sounds that are anti-human. In the country we have natural, pleasant sounds that are natural and conducive to human beings feeling good. Technologically produced sound or noise from traffic, from aeroplanes, from anything mechanical that is loud is a negative vibration. Of course, we are in a matrix, so even nature, could perhaps become a negative, but that is only because we are in the technological, artificial, mechanical matrix with negative sound. Like theoretically speaking, and this is what happens to me, okay? So, I could be wrong, but this is what personally happens to me. I hear a negative, technical, mechanical sound. It brings my vibration down. It desensitizes you to the sound. It makes sound louder. It makes sound unpleasant. Then if you heard a natural sound that was also loud, that in the past you would not have been affected by, even if it was loud. In other words, if you had an animal making a dog barking, very good example, a dog barking very loudly, annoyingly, okay? This would not annoy you if you had not come from the traffic and the mechanical sound that's already deconditioned you to be at a low vibration, to where your head is spinning from an unnatural, technical, negative sound. The dog barking would then become pronounced to where even a natural sound is going to create add to a negative vibration. Have I put that well or not? You'd have to experience it, I think. See if you in your personal life, only if you're living in the city, if you're blessed you are in the country, because then you will hear less of that, and so therefore the natural sounds, even if they were loud, would not. But my own personal view is that there is still a much more negative vibration with unnatural sounds. You know, a jackhammer is not a pleasant sound. No one would deny that. It's a necessary evil to make something, but it's not a sound. And most of the people that do the work around in the city, you know, I might have to walk past the negative sounds, but I haven't got the great big earmuff things on that they have while they're doing it. They're not hearing it. You know, so this is the world that we live in. So I'm saying that we shouldn't be, yes, I am saying that we should be using a broom and a shovel, not mechanical devices to clean up things, to, to blow the leaves around with those things that make enormous noise, negative vibration, instead of, yes, it's quicker, it's easier, but the price for that is negative vibration, low frequency. Low frequency world, low frequency human. Most people think that's how we're meant to be. We're low frequency humans, we live in a low frequency world. That is natural. That's what most people think. I'm saying I don't think that's the case, that's all. Whether you agree with that or want to live in my delusion world, I'm not living it anyway. I'm living in the low frequency negative matrix, earth world, that is largely the opposite. But I'm saying that I don't think that is to where we can be at what is our highest level. But I've just said this, and that's that. And I'm sorry that I'm not putting it very well and that I'm talking too fast, too loud, etc. But it's difficult for me to relax and make a decent video, and I hope that some other people will do better with that. Maybe other people might take one or two things from what I've said and make better video, or get something. I don't know. But anyway, I'm closing off now because it's getting late. And I thank anyone for watching. If you're tolerant enough, because as I said before, I'm not very good at this. And also I go all over the place, which makes it worse, whereas if I just kept on one thing. So it's almost as though you have to be a mastermind to even follow it. And I know that is, that's like me saying, well, I think I know what I'm talking about, but if I'm not explaining it or putting it like I was saying, I was criticising the people who make movies for presuming, not keeping it simple and direct, and presuming that the people who watch a more complicated movie already have prior knowledge or already understand half of the symbols and stuff that they will put in a movie. By symbols, I mean stuff that we don't understand, that we have not heard of. Be a bit like me watching a movie on something that I'd never experienced or known about even, which was like that Crying Game movie. I didn't know most of the points that were in it about the actual situation that some of the people were in, because I don't follow the worldly stuff. I don't follow events and stuff like that much. These days I accidentally hear about events, but I don't seek them out and try to avoid it. So therefore I could only focus on the love story angle in that movie, and perhaps the parable of the frog and the scorpion, But anyway. Okay, so good night. It is night here, and very dark indeed.